In a wonderfully heartwarming story, two right-wing Donald Trump-loving dipshits have turned on each other, with Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire parting ways. This comes after months of a lot of things that Candace Owens has been saying that Ben Shapiro has not liked. So I'm going to go into this. I'm going to get to what happened here, very likely. This does appear to be a firing, but again, they have parted ways, as you'll see. This is the announcement from Jeremy Boring, one of the co-founders of Daily Wire. Daily Wire and Candace Owens have ended their relationship. She was fired. Let's let's just be clear. This is how firings are done now. Oh, we have decided to part ways. Yes, months after months and months of Candace Owens saying some terrible shit, and we'll get to that as well. So there's a bit of complications here because Candace Owens, it appears in like one or two sentences, has lobbied an accurate criticism of the Israeli government, but that doesn't require us to give her any sort of credit for that when the vast majority of what she does is bigoted, racist, anti-Semitic trash. And so to be clear here, both sides are bad in this fight. Both sides are bad. So Candace Owens writing here this morning saying, "The rumors are true. I'm finally free." Going on to say there will be many announcements in the weeks to come. So I assume she's going to talk shit because this is what she does. She does this for attention. I don't know if she actually has any real politics. You go back in her history, she appeared to be on the left, but then maybe realized there was no money there. There's no money on the left. I'm sorry to tell you. Went to the right where she made a lot of money, and now is going to do her own thing to likely continue making a lot of money. But I'm sure she will, dish more in the future. But this is what we know so far. Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro don't really like each other, and there's a lot of reasons for that. This is what Ben Shapiro said in November about Candace Owens and her recent comments towards the Israeli conflict.
And then the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. I think it's Yeah, I mean, she still works for my company. I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
So, Ben Shapiro, very clear there. Again, that was November 14th that was posted. And let's go to some of those statements, because this is where things get a bit complicated, let's say. So Owens' departure comes after months of tensions between her and Daily Wire co-founder Ben Shapiro over her promotion of various anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. This Mediaite article is written terribly because it starts by making Candace Owens seem reasonable. After the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel and outbreak of war in the Gaza Strip, Owens quickly emerged as a critic of Israel's military operations, promoting what Mediaite is claiming as falsehoods about supporting religious segregation in Jerusalem and all but accusing Israel of genocide. Before we even get to the horrible shit that she has said, that this is stuff that has been documented by human rights organizations, by the UN. In terms of segregation, this is well documented. This is Human Rights Watch. Across these areas and in most aspects of life, Israeli authorities methodically privilege Jewish Israelis and discriminate against Palestinians. Laws, policies, and statements by leading Israeli officials make plain that the objective of maintaining Jewish Israeli control over demographics, political power, and land has long guided government policy. In pursuit of this goal, authorities have dispossessed, confined, forcibly separated, and subjugated Palestinians by virtue of their identity to varying degrees of intensity. In certain areas, as described in this report, these deprivations are so severe that they amount to the crimes against humanity of apartheid and persecution. And that went for, this is an article from, I think, 2021. Just so you understand, this is not, October 7th, everything happens. No, there's a long documented history of apartheid. And then October 7th happened, and Israel's response to it has just been genocidal. UN experts call on international community to prevent genocide against the Palestinian people. That was back in November. And of course, we went on to see the ICJ ruling that I covered, which they found it plausible that Israel's acts could amount to a genocide and issued 6 provisional measures ordering Israel to take all measures within its power to prevent genocidal acts, including preventing and punishing incitement to genocide, ensuring aid and services reach Palestinians under siege in Gaza, and preserving evidence of crimes committed in Gaza, all of which the Israeli government, is not following. It's important to understand these facts and be able to separate that from what Candace Owens has been doing with this. She has instead turned this as a way to disparage all Jewish people. Criticisms of the Israeli government are not criticisms of Jewish people. Those are 2 very different things. One is hate. One is an accurate criticism of the actions of a government. So in the months since, Owens has lashed out against political Jews and theorized about a small ring of sinister Jews exerting influence in Hollywood and Washington, D.C. Most recently, she liked to tweet promoting the blood libel that Jews drink Christian blood as part of certain religious ceremonies. And in November, Boring had insisted that Owens was paid to give her opinion, and that until her opinion violated the law or the terms of her contract, she would be welcome at Daily Wire. And that's this tweet here. So this is from back in November, shortly after this video of Ben Shapiro came out of him criticizing her. Jeremy Boring tried to, tap down any idea that she'd be fired for her views, and clearly she was fired for her views. She has been, look, I think it makes perfect sense to fire somebody for the kind of hate she is spewing. But if the Daily Wire was a reputable organization, they would have no hosts left because they all spew hate to varying degrees. But when it comes to criticisms of the Israeli government and how, look, it's impossible to know how offended these people really are about the actual anti-Semitic shit that she has been spewing, because the Daily Wire itself has spewed quite a bit of anti-Semitic garbage, separate from Candace Owens. But I think this really has a lot more to do with criticisms of the Israeli government, which Ben Shapiro is a massive defender of. So that, for them, I think, again, my opinion, I think that's what really crossed the line for them. But again, it's important to not give Candace Owens credit here. Like, there are millions of people who are part of, human rights organizations, who are also Jewish people. I mean, there's Jewish Voice for Peace, Independent Jewish Voices, B'Tselem, a Jewish-based or a Israel-based human rights organization, that all have accurate criticisms of the far right-wing Israeli government and apartheid and the ongoing genocide. They deserve the credit for leading this movement of human rights, for standing up for Palestinians. People like Candace Owens, who are doing whatever they do for attention, for money, don't deserve credit for the 1 or 2 sentences she may have said about, Israel's attacks on Gaza, because she's not doing it from any sort of principled stance. Any attempt to try and give Candace Owens credit here, I think, is simply tainting the actual human rights movement that is being led by actual activists. Putting Candace Owens into that group just taints the entire movement. There's no reason to include her in the group of people that are actually trying to fight for human rights. So she deserves no credit for any of the maybe correct things she had said in 1 or 2 sentences. Now, this gets to oh yeah, that's it. That's the end. I was going to say this gets to her getting fired here, but that's what happened. So we're not clear yet. Again, let me just this is all sort of happening now. Just want to see if there's any more updates here. So she has, a personal YouTube page. I'll bring the show back after a brief hiatus. It's very likely she was fired. I'm sure she was making quite a bit of money from the Daily Wire, which again was started by billionaire investors. The Daily Wire, which pretends to care about the average person, which stands up against the elites when they themselves are the elites. It is pretty funny, but actually, this is what I wanted to end on. Some of the reaction to Jeremy Boring here in announcing this split, because there's another element of this that is just comical. I mean, this tweeter is joking, but cancel culture, which, I mean, the way that the right throws around cancel culture for any time somebody's fired, it makes perfect sense to throw back in their face. The Quartering, who is actually conservative, writing here, saw this coming from a mile away. Big con is real. So a lot of the replies are supporting Candace Owens and criticizing the Daily Wire. Someone else here, this is a loss for Daily Wire and a win for Candace. And, you know, most of the check marks on Twitter at this point are people paying for check marks who are conservatives, because most people don't want to give Elon Musk money. So a lot of these replies here that you're going to see are conservatives saying that Candace is winning here. But massive L for Daily Wire. And yeah, so, and this person appears to be from the Timcast. A little Timcast logo there. So there's a little civil war brewing, as Tim Pool would say. There's a civil war, but it's between conservative groups. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. What sort of audience the Daily Wire continues to maintain, while what happens with Candace Owens and building her right-wing audience. Whatever's going on there, this is just fun for the rest of us who aren't completely insane. And just as I was about to edit my video, I saw TMZ release their story, and they have some sources with some more details, so I want to be clear on what they know here. They're saying that she was indeed fired, as I suspected. Going on to right here, with sources with direct knowledge tell us it was squarely over what the Daily Wire honchos saw as anti-Semitism, and the firing went down early this week. We're told the last straw for the Daily Wire was her March 8th appearance on the Fresh and Fit podcast. The hosts were talking to Candace about the rift with Ben, and every time Ben or his wife, who is Israeli, was mentioned, the show dropped a cha-ching sound effect, an obvious nod to the anti-Semitic trope about Jews and money. So it does appear that indeed, at least according to their sources here, that it was the obvious anti-Semitic remarks that Candace Owens was making, or I guess participating in this podcast, that led to her being fired. And also apparently they had previous conversations with her to understand her position. Again, this is very clearly leaked to TMZ by the people in power at Daily Wire because they want to give a certain perspective. I'll get to another reason why I think that in a second here. But they're trying to put out this idea that we didn't want to censor her. We really didn't. So they want to avoid any criticisms of, you know, stomping on free speech. But they felt that podcast incident crossed the line. But this is why I really think they wanted to purposely leak this to TMZ, because they say here, we're told Shapiro was not involved in the decision. So they're really trying to protect Ben Shapiro here. They don't want him to face any heat over this firing, even though clearly, as we saw from the clip earlier that I showed you, he was not happy with Candace Owens. I'm sure that played, even if he wasn't directly involved with the firing, they must have talked to him. He's a co-founder. Like, he I'm sure was involved in some way in this. Doesn't like Candace Owens, clearly, for obvious reasons. And even if he didn't fire her directly, I'm sure he was consulted on the firing. But they're leaking this to try and protect him for obvious reasons. So that is all the details. And as I suspected, she indeed was fired.